Buddycast. No, don't be naughty, go meet everybody here on Buddycast.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the founder and host of Buddycast, Nick Sorensen.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to everybody's favorite show, Buddycast. I'm your host, Nick Sorensen. Thank you for joining us on this wonderful Thursday evening, or as I always call it, Friday Eve. We are joined by my special buddy, my dadvocate, my good friend from Erie, Pennsylvania, Scott Stoops. How you doing, Scott?
Good. Thank you for having me on, man. I'm excited to be here today.
This is my way of saying thank you for all the help you've given me over the past year. So thank you.
Oh, no problem at all, man. I'm just here to help wherever I can, whenever I can, you know?
Mm-hmm. For those who don't know, Scott is what I call, is what we call a dadvocate. He's with the Guys in Grief dadvocate program. He's the one that's really been there answering my questions as a new lost dad, just how to handle different things. Like, how do you handle different holidays? What's your advice for the in-laws? What's, like, what happens when you just have that day that comes out of nowhere and throws you a curveball and you go from being extremely like positive and can-do attitude to just, why did I get out of bed this morning or something, We all have those days. So, but Scott, the first question I have for you today on Buddycast is, would you be open to share your lost journey with our audience?
Yeah, that is a heavy story, but I can give you the small version of it. So we have had two losses. We had a first loss in 2018, daughter Celeste, at 9 weeks. And then in 2021, we lost our son Dexter at 19 weeks. That one was a lot more traumatic than the first one. Fathers are in a different position from their wives, where we don't necessarily bond with the child until we kind of hold them in our hands, until we see the tangible baby. Where a mother, it grows inside of her from day one, so they have a special bond that we don't understand or even have. So the first one didn't hit me nearly as heavy as the second one, because our son, he was born our second, and I got to hold him, so that was, to me, a lot bigger pill to swallow than the first one. Did you want me to go to like the story of? Yeah,
whatever you're comfortable with sharing.
Yeah. So our first one was just, it was a term pregnancy, miscarriage. But with our son, we were excited because we finally made it past that point where we lost Celeste the first time. So we were excited. We're like, okay, I think we're past the difficult part. I think we're okay. God wouldn't let that, anything like that happen again. And one night, my wife just started getting contractions. And so we rushed to the hospital at 19 weeks. And, he had a strong heartbeat, and they went back and forth saying, oh, you're going to lose this baby. Oh, I think everything's going to be okay. You might be able to hold off. And as we know, babies can't really survive that early on. And we were just going to try to wait it out in the hospital. Hopefully, maybe he could make it, to I think it's like 24 weeks is when they're viable, is what they say. And so we were in there for about 2.5 days. And we were pretty confident maybe we can hold this out. And then in the middle of the night, on the third night, she went into labor and gave birth to our son Dexter. And he lived for about 7 minutes. We read him a story. I told him all about the family, and then he took his last breaths, and his heart stopped, and then we just kind of just held him all day and introduced him to the family, and then the funeral took him, and that was the hardest moment for me. to knowing I will never hold my son ever again. And that part was probably what got me the most, like I just lost it at that point. I was kind of being strong the whole day. And then at that point when I had to let him go, it was the most difficult thing I had to do. And then we had to plan a funeral and everything else. But yeah, I'm a believer of God, obviously. And while we were in the hospital, I just kept on praying. I was like, please, we'll do anything, just save our son, just let him be okay. And I've never actually got down on my knees and I just put my head to the floor, and I never prayed so hard in my life. And in that moment, I kind of felt a connection that I never felt before. And I feel like since our loss with Dexter, my faith has kind of only grew. And we kind of just been doing everything we can to make our loss, everything just a more of a positive experience for us. And that's why I decided to do the Dadvocate program and help out other dads in need, because it's one of those things there, I wish I had that when I was going through my loss, So that's the short version of the story. Any details or anything like that, but
Number one, my heart goes out to you and your family. But from the pain came advocacy, came you wanting to help. You weren't just the dad who's just like got beat to his knees and just stayed there forever. Like, why me? Why this? You seem like you're a dad who goes, okay, here's what I've been through. How can I help everyone else? A follow-up question to your story was, you touched on it a little bit, but did your loss impact your faith? Did you
it did. I was very angry. I would say my wife and I were both very angry for probably a good year after that. And rightfully so. I can see why people kind of lose their faith in those kind of moments, because they would say, well, why would God allow that to happen? And it took us a little while to figure out that, that God doesn't, do that, but he helps us get through it. And, when you pray and stuff, it's not for results, it's for yourself. It's to make yourself stronger for you can get through it. A lot of people misinterpret that. And, yeah. And I honestly, I don't think I ever questioned my faith, but I definitely was very angry at God for a very long time. And, until we kind of started looking at the bigger picture, we went through therapy and, we talked to other people and stuff. And then we started kind of feeling a little less angry throughout the month, months and years after that first year. But yeah, it definitely had an impact for sure. And honestly, and you said I was, I seemed like the kind of dad that would just be like, okay, how can I help people? That wasn't I wasn't very strong right away. I was just like everyone else. I didn't know how to handle my grief or my loss, and I didn't know how to really move forward. I took a month and a half off from work. And after that, I was like, I have to just keep myself busy. Otherwise I'm thinking all day and I'm kind of just getting in my head. So I had to go back to work, kind of get close to a normal routine as possible. And my wife and I, after we lost Dexter, within the week, we kind of ran away. We just kind of drove down to Gatlinburg, Tennessee, Pigeon Forge, and we just kind of just stayed down there for a week, kind of just to be out of the elements and kind of, with a lack of better term, kind of just forget about it for a week and trying to bring ourselves back. Because the one thing that I kept on repeating to my wife, I was like, we cannot allow this situation to wreck our marriage. We have to be able to get through this. I've seen so many marriages dissolve over a loss of a child, and I was not going to let that happen. So we ran away, and then when we came back, we thought about, okay, what now? What do we do? And we just took baby steps every single day, moving forward. And yeah, it took me a little bit to get that strength and to want to help out other people. But I was, for the first year especially, I was not myself. And it was tough.
Before we go on, Scott, I just have to make a quick disclaimer to all of our buddies that are watching. If you're watching from the Nick Sorensen page and not the Buddycast page, I do apologize. The Nick Sorensen page doesn't show any comments. So if you're commenting on Nick Sorensen, I may not see your comments, but if you're commenting on Buddycast page, we can see your comments. So I just have to throw that out there real quick early into the episode, Scott, just so no one gets confused or goes like, why are you ignoring me or anything.
Absolutely.
But, like you said, like you said, you didn't, what I admire about your journey is you didn't stew there. You didn't just stew. You had your loss, like everyone else does, I'm still going through it. You had your moment of grief. You had your moment of like what you're allowed to be. You're allowed to grieve. You're allowed to feel angry. Sorry, you're allowed to feel all those emotions.
Mm-hmm.
But you didn't just stew there. You didn't just stew there and be like, why me? Like to this day, like, why us? Why this? Why that? You moved on, you didn't move on because no one officially moves on, but you moved in a positive direction.
Right.
I got to ask, did you go to Pigeon Forge? Did you go to the cabins in Pigeon Forge?
No, we didn't go to the cabins. We actually stayed at a hotel. It was like the cheapest one they had. It was disgusting. It was not clean. There was mold in the bathrooms, and It was kind of an awful experience to be quite honest. But we couldn't really get our money back, so we paid for it online. It was one of those non-refundable situations. But we were just kind of just like, you know what, we're just going to stick it out, and we just kind of just explored those areas. Little did we know that it was a huge tourist area, so that was crazy. But yeah, I wish we would have stayed in a cabin now that we, looking back at that situation, but you do what you can, in the heat of the moment. You're not really thinking clearly, or, we just wanted to get out now. So
Exactly. I was just thinking that because me and my wife have been looking at those cabins, and I'm like, what if that was it? So
I highly recommend the cabins. I heard great things about those. So yeah, you guys decide to do that. It's gonna be great.
Absolutely. So with part of moving forward, you got involved and said, I want to help other dads because that's what I needed at that time. Now you're part of the Dadvocate program with Guys in Grief. Tell me how you got involved in that and tell our viewers who maybe aren't familiar about it.
So it was kind of a few different things happened to get to that situation. So first of all, to help us with the original like funeral arrangements and the burial and everything else, Emma Footprints had a huge helping hand of that. They paid for everything. They helped us the first time, and so we knew to reach out for them for the second time. And like without even question, without even asking, they were just there for us, which we really appreciated. I don't think we could have got through that without them. And through them, I met the guys from Guys in Grief at one of their Emma events, and they said they were going to start a podcast, and then it's like the second like all male grief podcast in the world, which is pretty incredible, honestly. And so I knew I had to be a part of that. So I was one of their early guests on that show. And after, I think it was like a year and a half later after I was on the show, they decided they wanted to do what they called a Dadvocate program, where they wanted to help out other dads and ask for volunteers. And at that point, I was ready to help out wherever I could. I've gone to, I've helped out with different kind of, men groups and other grief groups before that through Emma's. And so I decided to jump on in and be a Dadvocate. And and then I went on their podcast a second time and talked about the Dadvocate program. And they actually put me through, there was a grief professional that actually had a class. And so he put all the Dadvocates through that class for we can be what they call a grief counselor, not a counselor, a grief educator. So it's not really a counselor, but it's just someone who kind of learns the steps of grief, and you can easily talk to people who are going through those same situations. So I definitely wanted to do that to get some more knowledge, and I believe that's what helped me with the Dadvocate program too. And then I met you and started helping you and a couple other guys, and it's been pretty great. It's not only for you guys, but it's actually helped me out with my grief as well. I've learned a lot, and some things that I've shared with you that actually helped me deal with my grief. And so that was awesome.
And it's been just as helpful with me. It's been just as helpful like you to find out that, when I was looking through the program, I was looking through all the profiles and everything like that. And I found you. I'm like, hey, this guy's from Erie. And then I found out our stories were so, like, I don't want to compare grief or anything, but our stories were so similar. Like, it was so, like, that's exactly, like, that was around the time we lost Silas, my wife's water broke around that time. He lasted a week after that on little to no fluid, and unfortunately passed after that. We even had a little earlier miscarriage. We was like very early on, like 8 weeks. Didn't even know the gender. Didn't know
Same with us.
anything. Yeah, didn't know the gender. Didn't know anything to it. It was literally just a go into an appointment, a regular checkup routine. We're gonna meet with a specialist this day, and then didn't even make it through the sonogram of, oh, no heartbeat. Sorry, like just what so. But so your story was very similar. That's what helped me connect to you. Like that, not only the fact that you're in my own backyard or something,
Right.
the fact that your story made sense to me. Like your experience was like, this guy knows what I'm going through. This isn't just going to be, well, here's what happened in our story. It's kind of like yours, where we, just like the fact that we lost a kid, but like ours was more of like made it through the whole experience, and then something went awry or something like that, or like, but like what it's like to go through, like to get to this point, to get to this section, and then everything just unfortunately goes like haywire and just goes south, and like there's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing, like, you want to, like, I heard someone say recently, you want to be the protector, you want to be, because as dads, it's our natural instinct to fix everything. Like, we got to fix this, we got to do something, like we got, not just when a toy breaks or when, like the car gets a flat tire, but like when a situation goes astray, we got to be the ones to be like, okay, how can we protect our family? How can we protect our kid? But unfortunately, what can we do in this situation? What can we do to fix this? Really, nothing.
Yeah, and that was, that's why a lot of people who don't go through this don't understand that, like, us being the protectors and being the leaders in the family, our job is to protect our children or our wives, and we literally have zero control over the entire pregnancy process, whether from conception all the way to birth. It's very scary. You have to really kind of just let God do the work and just have faith that things will work out. And unfortunately, sometimes it does not work out in our cases. But yeah, I had a huge problem with that, because I was like, I want to be able to save my child. I want to be able to be there for my wife, and she's completely broken, and I don't know how to fix it. There's nothing I can do. And so in those situations, it's just, you're completely helpless, like you said,
But just like you, I'm thankful for all the resources that we've been given. You and I have a beautiful resource right in our own backyard with Emma's footprints. Tell me about your experience with Emma's.
Yeah, so like I said, they helped us through our first loss, and then they were immediately there in the hospital while we were there with Dexter, and because they helped us, we didn't have to worry about the finance portion of it. We could just worry about just ourselves and our grieving process. And when you don't have to worry about the finances, that really helps out tremendously, because a lot of people with any kind of loss, whether it's, a spouse, parent, anybody, there's a lot of money with the funeral arrangements. And if they don't take care of it, you have to figure that out. And we didn't have to do any of that. So just that alone helped us out. They gave her a gift basket. They even gave me one, just, saying we're thinking of you, and providing those resources to us. They had therapy, free counseling, anything that you need, they paid for everything. And we got to meet other couples who had similar situations to us as well. So without them, I honestly don't know if we would have been nearly as successful in our grief journey as we are, So they were a huge helping hand with that, for sure.
They really are. We would be in the same boat as you guys. If they weren't there, we would be just lost. And I hate to say it this way, we'd be stewing. We'd be like, just, what do we do now? Where do we go? But they were, the minute I reached out to Tracy, she was, the questions were, where are you guys? How can we help you guys? And like, well, what can we do for you? Like, what do you need at this moment? What can we do for you at this moment? What's your address so we can send you the resources? Here's an email with everything we have to offer. And like you said, it's not just for mom. It's not just here's a care package for mom. Well, what about dad? What about, like what about dad in the corner over there? But here's stuff for dad. Like here's the podcast for dad that he can listen to. Here's, a new support group that's going up soon. Here's another support group that Emma's does that you're more than welcome to join into. Here's this. Here's the bracelet. I wear this bracelet all the time. It says "Daddy of an Angel."
Yep, I have the same one. Yep.
So, and it's true because you're still a father no matter what. It
Yep.
reminds me of that every day. You're still a father. You're still Silas's dad no matter what.
Absolutely. Yep. You still have to parent your child, whether they're here on earth or in heaven, and it's important for you, especially on milestones like birthdays and even just certain holidays like Father's Day, like we just recently had.
Yep.
It's important to take care of yourself and to allow you to grieve in those moments, And I was a person, I was completely against counseling. I was against like therapy. I was against, support groups and everything. I hated doing all of that and didn't want to do any of that. But my wife talked me into it. And honestly, I'm glad that I went to that first support group with Emma's because it allowed me to kind of open up in a way that I've never opened up to anybody before, and to allow myself to say it's okay that you're feeling this way, because everyone in the room feels exactly the same way and knows exactly what you're feeling in that moment. So there's no judgment, and as a matter of fact, every time I listen to other people's stories, I always get emotional because it brings you back to that moment, and it really, and you kind of empathize with that person, with that couple. And, for a while I was going, I recently, lately we stopped going because I don't know. I think after a while, I just kind of try to help out in other ways and not just help out myself with that. So yeah, it was that wasn't another way that has helped me with my grief journey as well.
Wonderful. Another thing they do where you and I met in person for the first time was the walk, both in Erie and Pittsburgh and virtually. How's your experience with that been?
It's been great. We do both walks every single year. We usually volunteer at the Pittsburgh walk, and then we walk at the Erie walk. Every single year we walk for Dexter and Celeste, make signs for them, except for this past year. We didn't make any signs, but we still walked. And then in Pittsburgh, we just love help out with, with anything they need. And I'm just honored to do it. It's a way to connect with other grieving parents, to just let them know it's okay. And, reconnect with some of the parents that we met through our loss journey. There's like 3 or 4 couples that we were just friends with that we don't see them very much, but we definitely know that we will see them at the walk every single year. And so we're going to be continuing to do it for as long as we can, as long as they're, willing to still do it. I'm glad they do it every year. And I'm glad they do it for those families, because we need some kind of outlet, even if it's one day a year, just somewhere where it's common ground, where, everyone has zero judgment towards you, and,
you're all there for the same purpose.
Exactly. And you can feel any kind of feelings that you want, and you can just let it out if you're feeling emotional. That's usually, the Erie walk is usually where it kind of comes back to me every single time. Just my grief hits me again. I just kind of feel for all those parents when they read all their names and they read my child's name. It's just as hard last year as it was the first year. But I still do it because it's something that just means a lot to us, And I was glad to finally meet you this year too. That was the first meeting, and I loved it.
Absolutely.
Hopefully you continue to go.
Yeah. Oh, we're this year. Last year we kind of just did it on the fly because we were new to the whole experience. So where it was just my wife, myself, my mother, and my brother-in-law, and then a few relatives joined at the beginning, but like kind of left after the service, or like walked a mile and then said, okay, or like half a mile and said, okay, we got to go do something, like we got to go to this next event or something like that.
Yeah.
But it really was powerful. Now my wife organized a team. We are going to be Team Silas, blessed by Silas.
Nice.
We already started the fundraiser. We're already getting on top of the ball. So
that's awesome.
This year we're going to be Team Silas, and we're going to be just like everyone else basically at the walk who has all the shirts, all the team, all the people walking by their side. It's going to be powerful.
That's
This
awesome.
year.
And you're already turning that into a more positive experience for you and your wife, like just our first year, especially, like we were trying to make the biggest team and raise as much money as we could, and we made shirts, and we still wear those shirts every single year. And it's nice to kind of feel like you're doing something for your child,
Exactly. You're not just memorizing, or you're not just keeping them in your memory and just moving on. You're actually doing something. Like you're actually making something of this.
Yeah. And also it allows your family to come and support you, and actually, because I know families, if they never had a loss, they kind of don't know how to approach you, don't really know how to talk to you. And this is one space where it's like, they don't feel weird, and I like that they allow families to come to these too, and everyone can just be one team for one day,
Certainly. It gives the family that opportunity that you say, like, when they say, how can we help you? You can say, walk with us, walk next to us through this journey. Don't guide us through it. Don't point us in directions. Don't, try to just walk with us, walk by our sides. We'll tell you when we need something. We'll tell you when we need help, but just walk with us.
Yeah.
And it's the perfect opportunity for them to do that.
Absolutely. And like you said, it's very powerful, and it's something that I'm very happy that they continue to do, and it gets bigger and bigger every single deal. And we always say it's an unfortunate club to be a part of, but you're kind of glad to be part of it once you're part of it, because you have all these people that are support you. And it stinks that all these families have to go through all this in order to
as someone told us during one of the support meetings, welcome to the club. Sorry you had to join.
Yeah.
But I told everyone at the fathers meeting, I said, at the dads meeting, I said, if it wasn't for these unfortunate events happening in our lives, what would we all be doing right now?
Right.
If everything went smooth according to plan and everything, where would we all be right now? We wouldn't be sitting in this room right here. We wouldn't be sitting on this podcast talking to each other.
No.
We'd be doing stuff like getting ready for bedtime, or getting, doing something. So
it's, a way for God to bring people together in ways that you don't expect, and we probably would have never met,
exactly.
And so, and there's a lot of our friends who wouldn't have even met, so.
And that's been my silver lining through this whole experience, through everything that's gone on in life. My silver lining has been, I'm sad that my son's not here, but because of him, I've met so many incredible people. I've made so many new friends. Just last Sunday, I made a new friend who during the meeting, we had this whole experience. We had the whole, you too experience. Like, wait, you're dealing with this too? Or wait, someone understands what this means, like what these people mean, or like what it means to have like this or that, So,
yeah.
And that's one of my favorite sayings in life. I've said this probably 1,000 times on Buddycast, and I should have a jar for, some people have a swear jar. I should have every time I say this quote on Buddycast jar. But it's by C.S. Lewis, where he says, friendship is born when one friend says to another, you too? I thought I was the only one.
Yep. Yeah, and that's one of my favorite things about just connecting through like podcasts and stuff, that you don't have to go through grief alone. And that's why I always tell everybody, it's like, it's finally, you don't have to keep this to yourself. You don't have to feel weird about it. You can just open it up and share your feelings and be okay with it. And that actually helps you through your grief process more than you realize.
It does.
Keep things bottled up to yourself, you could just one day explode, in so many different ways, good and bad. And this allows you to grieve healthier and better and grow bigger and stronger from it. And hopefully, and not everyone, some people are stronger than others. Some people just don't ever get out of that dark place. It's unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's always any way to, just improve myself and make myself stronger. Mm-hmm. I always try to find ways to do that,
That's a good follow-up question. What are some ways you handle grief? Like, what are some ways you combat grief with, not only letting you feel what you feel, but like, what are some things you do for your own happiness, for your own sanity?
I'm kind of like any other guy. I just kind of keep myself busy, work a lot, and I'm a video gamer. So I like to play video games. That's one thing I've always kind of I can escape from reality for a little bit, you know. Honestly, the biggest thing that helped me through it was exactly a year after we lost Dexter, our son was born, Bowen. And then we, in 2021, 2022. And then we had our daughter shortly after that. And those kids, kind of just parenting them and just help me get through that a little bit better too. I see so much of Dexter and my son, and I feel like when I parent him, I'm parenting both of them at the same time. I know it's a weird thing to say, but I just feel like I feel Dexter's spirit is with them everywhere. And because they look so similar, it's just crazy. So, I mean, honestly, my kids helped me through my grief, but I had other outlets as well. And doing things like counseling, the support groups helped out a lot, doing the walk. I've been on probably about 4 or 5 different podcasts for grief. And then going through the advocate program really is kind of what really started really helping me, just connecting with other dads and just having one-on-one conversations, realizing that, you know how big and strong you think you are, we're all the same on the inside. We can break down, we can cry, we can be sad, we can fall apart, don't have to be so strong all the time. It's okay to not, just be so strong,
Yeah, it's okay to not be okay.
Just be human. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That brings up two follow-up questions I have to develop from that. Number one, with parenting, do you let your kids know, like, hey, you guys have a brother, you guys have do you still make the child part of the family is what I think I'm trying to get to.
Yeah, absolutely. Every year for both of them, we definitely we still celebrate their birthday. Mm-hmm. So we usually buy cupcakes and we sing happy birthday, and we kind of just go somewhere private and just celebrate. The first year after we lost Dexter, we had a huge birthday party for him. We invited everybody in the family, all our friends, and then we kind of did like a raffle and stuff, and all the proceeds went towards Emma's Footprints. And so that was a really cool thing. So we got to celebrate the birthday. But after that, we were like, we don't really want to do nothing big every year. We just kind of want to celebrate in our own little way. And yeah, just hitting certain milestones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the second follow-up to that is I've been asking a lot of dads with rainbow babies about this, just in preparation for one day when I have a rainbow baby. I hope with all my heart. What's the experience like going through after a loss? Like, what's the
yeah, I'm not gonna lie, it's tough. Pregnancy after a loss is probably the most stressful thing I've had to endure. With Dexter, I got a phone call while I was at work, and saying I had to come home right now. And so basically, every time when my wife was pregnant, every time she called me, my heart skipped a beat. I'm like, please just don't tell me something's wrong with our baby. And I've always had that on my mind the entire 9. Well, he was born a month early, so it's the entire 8 months. And every time we went to a doctor's visit, we were very adamant that every time we go to do a doctor's visit, we want to do an ultrasound. We want to make sure our baby was okay. And I just held my breath every single time. Just, make sure, please have a heartbeat, please be moving, please be okay. People don't realize, especially doctors and nurses, they don't realize when you have a loss and you have to do all those appointments and for any reason, you're just on edge the entire time. And I really hope in the future they kind of teach them how to deal with grieving and lost parents, because we are a different breed of people. We don't think, we don't act like other people. We are just paranoid all the time. And it was the same way with our second pregnancy with our daughter. It's just because we had them back to back to back. It was 3 years in a row. And for those 3 years, I don't think I relaxed once. I was constantly on edge. I was stressed out. I don't even remember a lot of those pregnancies. I didn't really get a chance to enjoy them like most people do. And that sucks, because you should be able to enjoy the pregnancy, to enjoy the process. And then after, unfortunately, both of our deliveries were very traumatic. They had to go to an emergency C-section both times, my wife did, because their heart rate started dropping really fast when they were in the hospital after her water broke. And so even in the hospital on that day, it was so stressful. And I was just worrying, just just make sure they just please come out okay. And when they came out with the baby, it was just, it's complete joy after that. And all my fears went away. But then after your baby is born, there is a different kind of fear. And it's like, oh no, now I have to keep this baby alive, and it's completely on me now. We have to feed them, take care of them. And honestly,
you have to be the protector.
Exactly. And because you couldn't be the protector the first time, you're even more protective as a lost parent. And with our first son, Bowen, when we brought him home for the first time, my wife and I slept in shifts. Like I stayed up all night to make sure he was still breathing, make sure I was so worried about SIDS, because we known a couple of couples who lost their babies with SIDS. So that kind of just always made me paranoid. And basically until the first year, I was just on edge, and that sucks. But, you just kind of take everything day by day as a lost parent. You just take deep breaths and you just do the best you can with the cards you have, and we weren't nearly as paranoid with our daughter as we were with Bowen, but it was still a very stressful experience.
Definitely.
Yeah. So
thank you for sharing your wisdom with me and your experience with me.
Absolutely. And I hope when it happens for you again, I hope I'll be there walking with you every step of the way if you have any questions or any worries or at all, because I've been through it and I know how tough it is, and
words can't describe how much I appreciate that. And I appreciate all the advice you've given me, all the walking me through it. Like even just the Father's Day message you sent me, just saying, hey, I know this should be a day of joy for you, but just feel what you have to feel today.
Yeah.
And just, know everyone's here for you.
And I'm by means no expert in anything. I'm just another dad who went through the same thing and try to
experience is the best teacher.
Exactly. And I just try to be there in any way I can. I know, sometimes it's a little hard, for us to get together and talk and stuff, because we both are very busy, but but as long as we're there, I'll eventually get back to you if you ever text me. So, for anything you need.
Absolutely. Let's talk about a happy experience. You are a postal carrier.
Yes.
You work for the post office. How did you get involved in that?
Well, so I worked at Walmart for 10 years. So that's all I knew was business and retail. And I stopped really liking it after I became an assistant manager there, and I just kind of stopped liking it. I was working long hours, wasn't seeing my family and stuff. So I was like, I think it's time for a change. So my wife saw a posting for the post office, and my brother-in-law actually already worked for the post office at that point, and they were hiring. So she's like, I'm going to put in an application for you. And so she just did the whole process for me, and I didn't even know about the job. And then they ended up calling me. Originally I was being a rural carrier, which is just box and post riding routes. And I was at Fairview for 2 years. And then I switched over to being a city carrier, which I do a lot more walking now than I did before. And I've been doing that for almost 10 years now.
Wow.
So I had my wife, honestly, to thank for that job, because if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't even be working there. And I don't even know where I would be, to be honest, because I never really had an interest in, anything in the workforce. I kind of just, I have a business degree and I wasn't really sure what to do with it. And So
Mhm.
kind of just fell into place, you know, and kind of the perfect job for me. Because I love being outside. I love just doing the work myself. I don't have to rely on anybody else. I don't have to be around bosses all day. So, and if I get into my head, which I do sometimes with my grief, I can just kind of tune it out by listening to a podcast, listen to an audiobook while I do the job, and it's fantastic. So,
Mhm. Has there ever been a moment in your career that like you felt like you were making a true impact, or like you were seeing like the fruits of your labor?
at my workplace, or
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I think so. I'm a huge talker. I like to talk to people on my route, and there was a couple situations. The most recent one was I saw one of my elderly customers. She was trying to screw in her screen onto her screen door, and she couldn't quite do it. So I just stopped delivering mail, and I just helped her out for, it took me like 5 minutes to help her out. And she was so grateful, and she ended up baking me cookies the next day. And my crazier moment that I had, that it was, I think it was back in 2019, 2020, I think. I saw a lady on my route walk out of her house butt naked in the middle of winter, and she fell down her stairs, and she was just laying in the snow. And I was like, oh my gosh, like what is going on? Here she was off of her medication, and she was just like, she didn't know where she was, what was going on. So I ran into her house, grabbed the blankets, and I called for help on my cell phone. I ran back to my truck to get help, and I just stayed with her while everyone showed up for her. And I don't know what would have happened if I wasn't there. She could have frozen in the snow. It was a very cold day. So I was just glad that I just happened to be there on that block in that moment when she was there. And I feel like I made an impact by just helping her. I almost saving her life, probably. I mean,
Definitely. Definitely.
So,
if it hadn't been for you, a neighbor could have found her 5 minutes too late, but that could have been 5 minutes too late.
yeah. And that was just a wild situation. I just couldn't believe that what was even happening at that moment, but I just reacted.
We have an audience question that I was just sent. Do you know if this is a true thing or not? Do you know if dryer sheets in the mailbox really keep the bees away? Have you heard about that?
I have no idea. I kind of hope that is true, because that is a huge problem when you deliver mail. You never know if you're opening a box, a bee has a nest in there that comes swarming out. I've had that situation before, and I kind of just avoided delivering to that customer until they cleared the bees out of the box. But yeah, I'm curious if that actually does work. I have no idea.
I guess we'll have to try and see.
Yeah.
So, but what other crazy story? Like, what else have you dealt with, like, with craziness? Like, have you dealt with, like, there's all that stigma between, like, dogs and postal carriers. There's what about, like, craziness, like, with weather and everything like that?
Well, if you want to talk about weather, this past winter was probably the craziest storm I've ever been in. The snow was so bad. Like, you know how our motto is, like, we deliver through everything: sleet, pandemic, storms, tornadoes, what have you. We don't stop delivering the mail for any reason whatsoever. And when we had that storm back in November, we didn't deliver mail for 3 days, and the mail doesn't stop. So it just keeps building up. And it literally took us probably a good month and a half to catch up on all the mail. I was delivering like 3 days worth of mail for days on end. I could only get halfway through my route. The next day I just picked up right where I left off and just kept trekking along, because as you know, it was so deep I couldn't even get through half the houses. I was skipping everybody, and that was a wild time. And that was probably the worst and the craziest situation I've had delivering thus far in 10 years. besides those other stories that I told, but yeah.
Well, at least you made it to this point. At least the snow didn't drive you away or anything like that.
Yep. And you know what? We just kept on going, and eventually we got through it. And the customers were just appreciative that we just were just out in that weather and were able to deliver their mail, even though sometimes the mail is just not important to them.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's for me. I take my job very seriously. I'm proud to work there, and I just love doing a service for the American people.
Love it. Now, buddy, I got 2 more questions for you.
All right.
The first one is one of my favorite questions, which is, in your own words, what does it mean to be someone's buddy?
Honestly, just being there for them whenever they need you, if they need to talk, or someone to maybe even walk beside you in anything whatsoever. It doesn't have to be just grief. It could just be like maybe if you guys bowl in a league, or you just go to the gym, or it could be just for any reason. But they're just there whenever you need them. Even if you just talk once a year, you can pick up right where you left off, and you just remain good friends. There's no hostility. Even if you have a bunch of differences with each other, That's why I think my buddy is, just someone who's with you.
Love it. Perfect definition.
Yeah.
And the final question I have for you tonight, I'm going to split this into 2 parts. It's called the Ultimate Buddycast Buddy Question. You ready for it?
All right. I'm ready.
Part number 1 is, what's your ultimate advice to lost dads out there, to people who are going through what you've been through?
My biggest advice is to allow yourself to not be so strong, and knowing that you are not alone. There are people out there in the world who probably experience something very similar, if not the same thing as you. And knowing that you're not alone, there's resources out there, and there's things that you can do to help you through your grief. You don't have to be stuck in grief anymore, like people in the past probably were. I had people reach out to my family that lost a child that I didn't even know about, and they came up to me after we lost Dexter, and they never told a single person. They were just grieving on their own for years and years on end, and that is no way for anybody to be. No one should have to walk through anything in life alone. And we can't physically walk through anything alone. We are meant to have people in our lives through every kind of situation, and including grief. So, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to not be so strong all the time.
Love that advice. That's my motto. It's okay to not be okay.
Yep.
And let's end on a happy note. What's your advice to anyone who wants to be a postal carrier?
They find something else to do. I don't know.
We get that a lot.
Yeah. The terminology of you're going postal. You kind of do go postal work in there. It's a lot of craziness going on, but it's a great job. Not quite as secure as it used to be. Mail volume goes down every year, so we kind of more do package delivery than mail nowadays. But I would say, if you are looking to become a postal carrier, just prepare for the unexpected. Maybe go for some long walks before you do it, because you're going to be walking a lot. You're going to be going upstairs a lot. So maybe just kind of get some exercise in before you go, and just come in with a level head, because you're going to be dealing with a lot of egos, a lot of strong-minded people that are just going to jump down your case and make you want to just hustle all the time. And still have a strong mind and a strong body, and you can do it.
Strong mind, strong body. I like that advice, because you're right. There are people out there who, no matter how kind you are, no matter if they're still going to be, why is my mail 20 minutes late today?
Yeah. And I always tell them, I'm like, you know what? A mailman is never late. We're never early. We arrive precisely when we mean to. So take it for whatever you want,
Love it. Well, Scott, thank you 1 billion for being a buddy. Thank you for being a advocate to me. Thank you for all the advice you've given me throughout my journey. Thank you for just being there for us.
That, dude, is honestly, it's the honor is all mine. Like, I'm just glad I can actually be there for one person and help them through their journey. And we're friends for life now. You and I are connected in a way that no one else no one else can connect with me in the way that you and I do. So,
hey, you're not a friend. You're a buddy.
There we go. We're buddies, man.
You're our official buddy of Buddycast. And as official buddy of Buddycast, I have one favor to ask you before we close out this episode.
All right.
Whatever you're going to do today, tomorrow, next week, next month, even next year. Promise me, you're going to go out and you're going to go be someone's buddy.
Absolutely.
For all my buddies out there watching, this is my buddy Scott Stoops. Please check out the Dadvocate program if you're a lost dad like me. Please reach out and just say hi to him. And please, whatever you're going to do tomorrow, do something nice for your postal carrier. Leave them an encouraging message. Say hi to them. They're human beings.
We appreciate it.
Yeah, just say hi to them. You know, just because your package is 5 minutes late or something doesn't mean you can't be nice to another human. Doesn't mean, as Mr. Rogers says, you can't be kind.
That's right.
Scott, thanks again for being on Buddycast.
Thank you for having me on.
Of course. I'm your host, Nick Sorensen. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on everybody's favorite show.
Well, the days are going fast. Buddy, we've got to make them last. Buddy, before they've all gone past. Buddy, tune in to Buddycast. Don't feel like go make it.